Hi everyone, this is Parth Modi, and in this video, I'm going to change your lives, transform your beliefs, and introduce you to one of the most amazing learning tools in the world. I'm going to do all that with Anki! Yeah, I might have gotten a little carried away, but seriously, Anki is one of the most amazing learning tools available. So, what exactly is Anki? Anki is a software that can be used to create and view flashcards, and it is very popular in the US. But unfortunately, not many students in India know about it. So, today I'm going to tell you everything there is to know about Anki. But before we go into the detail of how exactly it works, I'll tell you why Anki is a tool that transcends most other forms of learning. There are two approaches to learning: active learning and passive learning. More than 90% of people in the world use passive learning. Passive learning includes things like rereading, highlighting, summarization, underlining. More efficient forms of passive learning include concept making, flowchart making, remembering through mnemonics. And while all these are good methods, they come nowhere close to the power of active learning. This is because that in principle, in passive learning, your brain does not have to work hard. In passive learning, the information is right in front of your eyes and all the brain has to do is just register it. And the issue is that with the slightest distraction, with the smallest wave of sleepiness, all the learning which should occur through these passive forms goes right down the drain. This takes us to active learning. Active learning has two components: practice testing and spaced repetition. Practice testing is basically solving questions. That is, when you solve a question, you know that you have the information stored somewhere in your brain. But instead of just passively reading it again and storing it somewhere else, what you're doing while solving a question is that you're using the same pathway and bringing that information to the front of your brain. So because it exercises the same neuronal pathways, the memory becomes stronger and you are more likely to remember it over a longer time. And because of this, the people who solve more questions tend to remember more and have more mastery over the subject than people who just keep reading the subject. Yeah, so that is practice testing. And the another component is spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is basically learning something today, then revising it tomorrow, then trying to remember it again 3 days later, then recollecting it after 1 week, then after 1 month, and so on. And this is the opposite of mass cramming that most people do. So what most people do in mass cramming is that we'll read and reread lots of stuff in a single day. And when we're done with that, we'll feel very satisfied that, okay, yeah, I read a lot today and I remember everything. And yeah, it's true that mass cramming has more short-term gains and more short-term satisfaction. But it has been found that learners who use spaced repetition instead of mass cramming, they tend to have more mastery and more retention over a longer period of time. So these are the two components of active learning, that is practice testing, that is solving questions, and doing them with spaced repetition, that is revising them at progressive intervals of time. The reason that I'm saying all this is because Anki implements both of these principles, and because of this, Anki becomes one of the best tools for active learning. And as I said, that active learning is way better than passive learning. Not just that, the best thing about Anki is that you can use it not only to study stuff like complex scientific processes like intracellular signaling, but you can also use it to learn entire languages. Right now, I'm not studying for a specific exam, and while yes, I used Anki to study for my Usmle STEP1, I made more than 1,500 flashcards. Currently, I'm using Anki to learn Spanish. So yeah, you can use it to learn science, you can use it to learn languages, you can even use it to learn music. So after this long lecture on why Anki is an amazing tool, let's dive right into what exactly is it and how to use it. Once we've downloaded Anki, we'll see a page like this which says profiles. Here we'll add a profile. Let's say profile 1.
I'm creating this for this video, and once you open it, we'll see a home page like this. Now first I'll show you how to create self-made decks, how to create flashcards, and then we'll go into the details of pre-made decks. Okay, so let's see how to make flashcards. Here, this what you see here is a deck, and this is the deck number 1. Let's say the name given here is default deck. So how to add flashcards? We'll go to add, and here we'll find a page like this. Now this is a basic type of flashcard where there is a question at the front and an answer at the back. So let's say the question is name 2 anticoagulants, and the answer we'll give here is heparin and warfarin. And once you add this, close this, and we'll see that a new flashcard has been added here. We'll go to study, we'll go to study now, and this is how the flashcard will look like. Now this is a very basic question, and I doubt that any of you will make a flashcard like this, but you can use this to make flashcards of any topic, of any difficulty. And once we have the question here, now we have time to think about the answer, and the answer comes to our mind that heparin and warfarin are the commonly used anticoagulants. So we'll go here, that is show answer, and we'll see that this is the answer that we get. Now we have 4 options. Whether we did not have any clue to the answer, if that's the case, we'll go to again, and the question will be repeated within 1 minute. Or based on the difficulty level, we can choose any of these options. Now let's say easy. So what happens is once you click that, this same question will be repeated 4 days later, and it will go into the spaced repetition which I described earlier. So in this way, after a month, you take any topic that you can't remember and you use Anki for that topic. I guarantee you that after a month you'll remember everything. Okay. Now there are different types of flashcards. Like the one we saw was the most basic type. Then there is this basic and reversed. So how this works is, let's say we can use this for learning languages or even for medical stuff. So for example, I'm learning Spanish right now, and let's say there's a word help, and the translation for help in Spanish is ayuda. So once I create this flashcard, I'll get the question both ways. That once I'll get help and I'll have to think of the Spanish translation of the word, and then once I'll get the Spanish word and I'll have to think of the English translation. So let's say help, and we'll see the answer. It's ayuda. Now we'll get the same flashcard again, but in reversed order. So there's ayuda. The answer is help. So this is how the reverse flashcard works. And the last type is, it is very useful for Usmle preparation, and that is the close. It is basically fill in the blanks. So we have a question like, let's say the chromosome affected in Patau syndrome is, and now we'll add the close format, that is the fill in the blanks format. So how it works is, we'll get 2 of these brackets, then we'll say C1, we'll put 2 colons, and this is the answer field we are creating. So the answer is 13. We'll complete this colon field, and here we'll name the queue, and in the queue we'll just put up a few blanks. Right, so once we add this, here we can also add a back extra field. That is, once you answer the fill in the blanks, you can add additional information about the question. So let's say the clinical manifestation of Patau syndrome is, we'll just add a few of these: microcephaly, omphalocele, low set ears, intellectual disability. Like, we've added this, and once we'll add this, let's see how this flashcard looks like. So we'll get the question here that the chromosome affected in Patau syndrome is blank, and we'll think of the answer, that's 13. And once we do that, we'll get the extra card here, extra information here. So this takes a lot of work, but this is also one of the most effective forms of making a flashcard. So right, so these are the three main types of flashcards. Now I'll give you some examples of the pre-made decks. Now major pre-made decks for step 1 include the Anki deck, the Zenki deck. So here we have the Anki deck. I have already downloaded. First I'll show you how to import decks, right? So let's say we'll go to Google Chrome and we'll search for Anki shared decks. Here we'll find a page like this, and we can search of anything that we want. So let's say we want decks that are made for USMLE step 1. So we'll go here and we can find all these decks, and all of these are made by people for USMLE step 1. And there are some really useful decks in here, like this is the Senke deck. It's useful. I personally use this, the first aid pharmacology deck, because my pharmacology was weak. I also use the simple first aid deck. So these are a few of the decks. Let's say we'll go here, and now we'll get this page where we can see we can get a few sample flashcards, and we can go to download. Once we download, we'll go back to Anki. Here we'll go to import file, and this is how we'll import a file. Right, so that's how you basically import a deck. Now this is the Anki deck. What we'll do is we'll go here, and when we click on this plus button we'll see the subtopics or subdivisions, and here we can see that Anki includes the Cheesy Dorian deck, which used to be a very famous deck, then the Lol Notacop, and the Zenki decks. Now why I feel like this is one of the best decks available, I'll show you. So let's say we go into a topic. Let's say we go into CVS. We go into CVS pathology. Once we go, let's go to study now. So what is the treatment for a patient with giant cell temporal arteritis? So we know that the treatment for temporal arteritis is steroids and tocilizumab. So we'll go to show answer. And here we'll get this. Also, you might have noticed that this is the closed type of flashcard. Here we have the additional information, that is, it should be given immediately, and production of IL-6 is highly associated with severity, so tocilizumab can also be used. And here we have got this extra links, and if you click on this, you'll find the first aid page which includes giant cell temporal arteritis. If you go below, you go to sketchy, you'll find the sketchy video thing that includes the temporal arteritis. You go to additional resources, and you can also find the information given about this topic in Netters Atlas. So this is how pre-made decks work. I've shown you how the self-made decks work and pre-made decks work. That's all about how to use Anki.
One thing that I'd like to mention about pre-made decks is that pre-made decks can contain a lot of flashcards. Like the Anki deck, which I just showed, contains more than 35,000 flashcards, and it might not always be possible to do all of them. So what I'd suggest is that you find a topic in which you are weak or which you find difficult, and only do those topics from the pre-made decks. For example, I always found neurology difficult or pharmacology difficult. So I'd go into neurology, and then I choose the drug or pharmacology section of neurology. So in that way, I can get whatever I want out of the deck. And one more thing that I'd suggest is that you rely more on self-made decks. That is, when you're solving a question bank, you create flashcards, and it takes work. It takes a lot of your time, because when you're making a flashcard, like in one question, if you make 2-3 flashcards, it takes around 2-3 minutes, and you'll think that, okay, this is wasting a lot of my time, but it's not, because once the flashcard is made, it will be super useful to you in revision. And I made more than 1,000. Like in UWorld, I made like 800 flashcards. From Amboss, I made around 1,000 flashcards, and those were super useful to me during revision. So yeah, even though self-made flashcards take a lot of your time, you should do it. And yeah, so that's all about flashcards. The best thing about Anki is that you can use it not only for USMLE, but you can also use it for NEET, next, or any other competitive exam. And yeah, one more important thing to remember is that you don't overdo it. That is, you might think that okay, 200 flashcards a day is very doable, and you might start with 200. But what happens is that every day the flashcards that you have to review keep on increasing. So by the end of the week, you'll have 200 new flashcards to do, and along with that 600 more to review, and that takes you to 800 flashcards, which is four times more than what you started with. So start small, stay consistent, and use this super amazing tool to do super duper awesomer things in life.